What weird flex you proud of? I made a meme on a small subreddit and a couple hours later my buddy sent me my own meme not knowing I made it. I bought the 2 first books of A Song of Ice and Fire from a dude in 1999 I met on Usenet. Couldn't find them in a bookstore. He said he had cases of them in his basement. And if I wanted them autographed? It was GRRM himself and way before they got popular. Edit. Some people have doubted this story and I promised to take a photo of the books, found only the first one, with a note of the username, to differentiate from other picture on internet link ever so seldom, cute things really happen. I've donated over 2 gallons of blood. I have O negative and CMV negative blood, so my blood is used in emergencies involving newborn babies. Edit. Please consider donating. Find a Red Cross blood drive near you. I had modest dreams, accomplished them all. I have an uncanny knack for remembering people, even people that I see very briefly. For example, I once saw a guy on the escalator in Toronto and I said, "Hey, when did you move here from Vienna?" He was flabbergasted. I had walked past him on the street once while visiting there and 5 years later I recognized him. I built and installed a bookshelf doorway with a hidden door handle myself. It leads into a room dedicated only to Dungeons & Dragons. Childhood dream achieved. Right now I hold the record at my local barcade for Street Fighter II. 1,010,000. I also get free beer because of it. It all happened because I was going back and forth with this guy that I haven't met yet on who can get the high score on their board. He held the record at 762,000 and then I beat it with 788,000. He's been trying to beat it ever since I posted that score and the closest he got was 770,000. When I seen that score posted on the game itself, I had about 6 beers in me and I walked over there and dropped the million by getting perfect on most of the bosses and a handful of perfects on the regular players. He's never going to touch that shit now. I've planted over 2 million trees. I got my braces off 7 years ago and I've worn my retainer every night since. I have a sock drawer that's 72 of the same exact sock. I never have to fold them or dig around to make a matching pair. I went swimming over the Mariana Trench, 36,000 ft of seawater, was only scared a little bit. I have hugged a penguin. Barack Obama follows me on Twitter, and I have no idea why. I'm scared he'll realize his mistake and stop. I remember one time coming up with a hilarious joke but saving it for later and then half a year after finding perfect time to say it. I got a pity pat from Obama. This was ages ago when he was still just a senator from Illinois. I got a job at a local radio station as a reporter for news in the area. Obama was speaking at a community college in our area and I was told to listen to his address and ask relevant questions afterwards. I had never done that before, or since, and I barely listened and at the end he met with the press, which was me and a local newspaper guy. After he finished with the other guy he looks at me and says, "What can I do for you?" My mind went totally blank and I just stood there staring at him. This went on for a little too long and eventually he reaches out a hand, pats me gently on the shoulder and goes, "It's okay." And then walked off. Lol. Lost 105 pounds. I hope you stopped gambling after that. Gossip in the office that comes to me never goes further. Went to the dentist for the first time in 5 years last week for a cleaning, check-up. No cavities. I have died 5 times due to allergic reactions. No breathing, no heartbeat, unresponsive. Always been brought back. The longest I was gone was roughly 3 to 4 minutes. Suffocation. No breathing. Don't give a fuck if I cut my arm bleeding. Not the fella above, but I recently had a severe asthma attack, blacked out on the phone with 911 trying to stumble outside to meet the ambulance, and woke up in the hospital. I was told that I was extremely close to dying. Waking up from that was the most disorienting and confusing sensation of my life. The first thing I remember was feeling heavy. So extremely heavy. I was desperate to sit up, but I didn't know why. My arms wouldn't obey me, but I was fighting to use them to prop my torso up. It would take me a while before I realized where I was. I fought against my own body for what felt like an hour. I remember seeing, but not processing the meaning behind anything in my field of view. It felt blurry and suppressed. I was terrified, but I didn't know why. After a while of fighting like this, I felt a bit of strength return to my arms. I was able to get one arm at the right angle behind me to begin lifting myself up. I felt like I was lifting weights and pushing through against all odds. First an elbow, then two, then lifting up with a hand, locking my elbow straight, then both. I felt alert, but I was scared and confused. I had no idea about anything. I wasn't even really there yet. It was all desperate need, bright lights, and confusion. Then I started processing sounds. It was loud. I suddenly felt guilty for some reason. I felt motion all around me, frantic motion, but I was stationary. I finally realized my eyes were seeing. I tried to understand what was going on around me. Wait, those sounds are voices. Those are people. Who are they? That image I'm seeing. That is a face. I don't recognize this person. Where am I? What happened? Oh, I don't feel well. I'm nauseous, dizzy, exhausted. Oh, I'm me. I'm a person. My sense of self was back. This person is pressing on my chest telling me I need to lay back down. Oh, they're doctors. She was a nurse. They're trying to take my vitals. I'm making it harder. They're asking me questions. They'll save me. I have to do my best to answer, so that they can do their best. I have to try my hardest to remember, and to give complete answers, leaving nothing out. My name. Yes ma'am, I remember it. My age? I remember that, too. Where am I? A hospital, right? Do I know what happened? Oh, an asthma attack. What medications do I take? There's a lot of them. I'll do my best to answer, ma'am. No wait, that wasn't all of them. I have to give you the whole list. I have to do my best. It went on like that for a while. I finally looked at the room's clock and realized it had been an hour and 20 minutes since I told my IRL friends on Discord I was having trouble breathing and was AFKing. I was still confused, but the doctors and nurses had largely finished their work and were leaving me alone more and more often. I flagged one down, singular in my mission to contact my loved ones and let them know I was okay. She tried to tell me to wait a while. I was dedicated. I made demands. She put me in my place. I apologized. There were other patients. Of course there were. I laid back in the bed. Eventually, they brought me a phone. I got a hold of my loved ones. They had already called around and found me. One was on the way. Everything was okay. Edit. Thank you for the gold. Ask me anything? Edit 2. Here's more of the story from further down in the comments. So weird. Just like your commitment to sitting up for no reason. Was that your only bad reaction? Yeah. I pondered on that urge at length while I was in the hospital recovering. Struck a chord that TV shows depicting similar events show the same thing. I wonder why we have such an urge to sit up. Must be some sort of primal self-preservation instinct. Who knows? And well, no. That wasn't the only reaction. I didn't cover anything pre-blackout. That was uniquely terrifying. Like I mentioned in a comment here somewhere, this is not the first time I've had to call 911 due to my negligence. I was just used to getting a breathing treatment in the ambulance and then being okay. Granted, every time I let that happen it was certainly scary. But something was different this last time. I tried to nebulize, but it wasn't working well. I decided to maybe steam up the bathroom, but almost immediately realized that was a bad idea, because it wasn't mucus causing the issue, like I normally get. My lungs were actually closing. I started panicking, a brand new kind of panic. Instantly called 911, threw on some slippers, grabbed my keys and left my apartment. I remember closing the door behind me and thinking that locking the door would take too much time. That I am running out of time fast. I focused on controlling my breathing, as I was only able to get short, shallow breaths. I was speaking to the 911 operator in short 3 to 4 word bursts between breaths. My apartment building is one of those rarer kinds where there is a magnetically locking exterior door, with an interior hallway where all the apartment doors are. It also has an elevator, and I am on the second floor. It was after hours, so I knew that exterior door was locked. Even if EMS got here in time to save my life, if I were not past that door, they would not be able to get to me. I would die. That realization set in as I was walking out my door. I had minutes before I potentially ran out of oxygen and lost consciousness. I already felt my extremities tingling. I focused on giving my full address to the 911 operator, ensuring she heard it clearly and got all the details. It was a struggle to speak, to gasp for air, and to also try to slow my breathing. After a point, when she told me to stay on the line and EMS were on their way and would arrive in minutes, the terror set in. I remember exiting the elevator on the bottom floor, and turning the corner to what at the time looked like the longest hallway in the world. In reality, it's about 150 feet. But in that moment, it looked like a tomb. I started repeating breath. Just so, breath, scared ma'am. Breath. I'm just, breath, so scared. I remember pressing on the push to open bar on the first of the doors. I do not remember pressing the second one. The one that was locked. I found out later on that another resident had found me and also called 911. I don't know if they found me inside that outer door, or on the concrete outside, but I was unconscious. They stayed with me until EMS arrived a couple minutes later. I was told that my airway had completely constricted when EMS arrived. I wish I knew who that other resident was so I could thank them. I'm glad I got to thank the EMS who saved me, though. 5 feet 3 male, and my GF is 5 feet 7. Not directly, but close enough for regular appreciation. I have finished 3 full tubes of chapstick in my life. Not lost or missing. Finished to the end. I can write with either hand. Not such an impressive skill, but when my colleague remarked that my handwriting is beautiful despite using my dominant, right, hand to also type at the same time, it made me blush. It was indeed a very beautiful and calligraphic handwriting. In the 1980s, there used to be a small ad every week in the back pages of the UK actors magazine The Stage, for a guy called David Burglass. It was just his silhouette, his name, his agent's phone number and the caption, "International Man of Mystery." The simple genius of it was so giddying that I felt compelled to steal it when I wrote the program notes for one of the performers in a student comedy show I directed. Another performer in that show was a guy called Neil Malarkey, who went on to form a double act with a young Canadian comedian called Mike Myers. He and Mike both loved that phrase, but neither of them knew where I'd got it from, so Mike just stole it again. Decades later, I got in touch with David Burglass, then aged 90, via his son and apologized for nicking it. He got back to say he was delighted to find out how Mike Myers had come by that phrase, and told me I'm forgiven. He's still alive today and nearly 100 years old. Burglass was a truly great magician, a huge star of British TV in the 50s and 60s, and deserves acknowledgement for that brilliant strapline. I'm also sheepishly proud of my part in the chain of theft that led to Austin Powers. I have the widest gap between my front teeth you'll ever see. Hell, people call me the Suez Canal, joke in my language, for how wide the gap is. I once, while eating pussy, tried to fit the clit between the gap and suck on it. Apparently it feels amazing, so I kind of went for it as my signature move and I made a name out of it. Kinda glad I didn't try to get them fixed lol. Suez Canalingus. I hiked the entire Appalachian Trail. Went from almost dead for 10 years to functioning human. Feels good to be back. Edit. Thank you very much for gold. Flexing hard. Went to Venice for 4 days, bought a 7-day public transport pass, because they only had 1, 3 or 7-day passes. Prices for 3+1 days and a 7-day pass is the same. End of the trip before leaving for airport. Stood at the central station and sold the remaining days at half price to a couple who were starting their vacation in Venice. Both of us ended up saving money. Open mouth smile. Edit. Wow. This blew up. I see a lot of comments about giving it away for free or me being cheap about it. Well, I sold it for less than half the price of what it would have cost the couple to buy new tickets for 3 days. I only got back like a day's money back. And no, I would not give it away for free because I would not accept a ticket for free if someone gave it to me. I would pay something. And also they were prepared to pay the original amount. And I would rather give away free stuff to the homeless, which I have done numerous times before, instead of giving it away to someone who can clearly afford it. And they were extremely happy at the end of it to save more than €50. But to each their own. When I was a little kid, multiple doctors said I would never be able to speak and that I would need assisted living for the rest of my life. Now I'm 16 and capable of taking care of myself, and I'm able to speak perfectly fine other than a slight stutter when I get really anxious. Homeowner for 17 YRS never missed a garbage day, unless the entire family was away. Couple times got out of bed at 6 a.m. hearing the truck coming, had to run out with the cans and my skivvies. American here. I was woken up by police in the middle of the night and escorted out of a country for my safety after slapping a Tunisian general in the face after he gave a Nazi salute to my East German housemate and made her cry. I was at a language immersion university in Italy for an independent study semester abroad. My housing fell through and I wound up with a 17-year-old girl from East 1 Germany as a roommate. I was 24, so kinda felt protective of her. She was being exploited at a restaurant for the summer and sending money home. I was out day drinking with this general guy and a couple of his subordinates. We were pretty fucked up. It was reckless. My roommate came home. I introduced them. He Heiled Hitler. She burst into tears. I slapped him. He and his buddies left. At about 1 to 2 a.m., when my roommate was still at work, the police pounded on my door. I had to register my presence with local police on arrival in town. Told me I had 5 minutes to grab my things. There was rumor of a credible death threat against me and they were escorting me to the train station and watching me get on a train out of Italy. That's what I did. It was August 1990. Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait that night. I remember reading about it in the paper on my way to Brussels. I stole a grand theft amount of money from my mom's husband in order to escape abuse. Fuck you, Don Edit. I have been waiting to feel this validated since she married that asshole when I was 13. Please continue the Don hate. It's weird. I can wear children's shoes because my feet are so small. While that seems odd, I'm proud because as an adult, I can buy those Ninja Turtle shoes my mom so disappointingly never let me get because I am a lady. Suck it, M.A. I'm a psychiatric nurse, and I saved a man's life when he collapsed outside my apartment. It was during the height of COVID. I could hear people shouting, and I looked out the window to the scene of a man face down on the road and people standing around him in a panic. I shoved my PPE equipment on, I keep some at home for cleaning, and ran downstairs in my pajamas, no socks or shoes on. He wasn't breathing and had a massive cut on his head so deep you could see his skull. Nobody knew how long he was in cardiac arrest for. I managed to get his heart going again by myself. I had so much adrenaline going, and when the paramedics came I gave them the full handover as they took him away. The paramedics took my details in case the hospital wanted to contact me. A week later, I got a phone call from the man and his wife to say thank you for saving his life, and if I ever needed anything they would help me. After he went away in the ambulance and the adrenaline wore off, I cried my eyes out, praying he would be okay. I still think about him regularly and feel very proud of myself. Update. OMG, you lovely, lovely people. Thank you so much for your kind words and for the awards. I'm not ashamed to admit I have cried as I read your comments. It's so nice to be appreciated by people. I also wanted to add in that if I had broken any of the man's ribs, I'm not 100% sure if he could or would have sued me as I was off duty. I would like to think that if another medical professional had driven past they would have done the same as me. Once again, thank you for your comments. My Dungeons & Dragons campaign was recently voted as Campaign of the Month on a website that lets you build wikis for your campaign lore and adventure recaps. All that's left is to win Campaign of the Year and I'll put it on my LinkedIn. Beat the crap out of cancer. I won a race on my local dirt track with my normal everyday car. Most people initially thought my car didn't have a chance to win since it was just a 4-cylinder. But after it won, lots of people cried about it having such a huge advantage because it's all-wheel drive. I followed the rules, not my fault they let me bring a gun, 4-cylinder turbo AWD, to a knife, V8 RWD, fight just because most people locally like knives. I had a similar experience with some guys getting mad at me in a sailboat race. They'd got all their fancy flashy racing boats, carbon masts and race sails, dry suites and all sorts of fancy stuff. They gave me some sneery looks every so often as I sat there in my 200 pounds patched up 70s fiberglass laser in shorts. Anyway, the wind was right calm, barely any. I just slowly passed them one by one and got first the time bonus for a lower boat class. Oh boy, they were mad. Reason being was that I was 16 at the time and about 50 kilograms, plus I'd lightly pressurized the hull with air so it sat really high in the water. Sat right up front under the mast to lift the rear out the water, leaving the rudder just dipping in, using it more like a windsurfer, basically reducing the drag massively. They were definitely very mad haha. Edit. I have just been informed that adding pressure to the hull does nothing, and reflecting on it I was a total idiot haha. I've been at my job for 1.5 years. I started at the shit end, overnight shift, 3 nights a week. 6 months ago, I was promoted to shift supervisor. Last week, I was promoted to store leader. I have worked minimum wage and dead-end jobs my whole life. I am super proud of myself. My family bloodline on my mom's side is excommunicated from the Catholic Church because my great-great-uncle knocked a nun out in private school. As a kid in the 90s I once beat Star Fox without getting hit once. I also discovered a glitch in the original Mortal Kombat I have never seen anywhere else.